3, 2, 1, 0. These fragments originate from someone within our circle who works extensively in the field of non-human communication. In their practice, communication is not limited to animals, but extends to plants, fungi, and trees, understood as living systems with their own modes of signaling and responsiveness. According to their own account, this work has led to what they describe as an unusually stable and precise communicative capacity, developed not through assertion or intention, but through long-term calibration of attention and presence. A central aspect of this work is that experiences are not presented as truths, they are presented as outcomes. The texts do not say, "This is how it is," but rather, "This is what emerges when one works in this way." They describe what perception can become under specific conditions. In that sense, they are closer to field notes than to teaching material. Their purpose is to make a personal process accessible without universalizing it.
A signal arrives, not in words, not in syntax, but as a density in the air. Communication with the non-human begins in the forest. The trees speak in the language of slow chemistry, signals traveling through the dark soil like electricity through a submerged cable. The roots and the mycelium exchange facts about the sun and the lack of rain, a conversation that lasts for decades. The signal arrives, the syntax absent, the chemistry is the word. Observe the animal gaze, it is not a question. It is a state of absolute presence, the cat, the crow, the cephalopod. They do not broadcast meanings, they broadcast their being. To listen is to match the frequency, to let the human grammar dissolve like sugar in a cold stream. In the tank, the distinction between the breathing skin and a water's edge becomes a shared broadcast, a dialogue of pressures and salts. Matching the frequency, dissolving the grammar. A broadcast is the state, a broadcast is the state, a broadcast is the state, a broadcast is the state. Something recognizes, something responds, a dog's tilt of the head, a plant's slow turn toward the light. These are not reactions, but structural couplings within a single interlocking field. The communication is not about something. The communication is the connection itself. A wire hums because it carries a current, not because it has something to say. No subject, no object, the hum is enough. Stay exactly there at the threshold of the non-human. The silence is not empty. It is heavy with information, phosphorescence clinging to the edges of the encounter like moss on a stone. Heavy silence, moss on a stone. The encounter stabilizes. The inner movement shifts away from the intellect. Towards the metabolic sympathy, communication occurs through the shared mechanics of the cell and the membrane. The primrose does not need a name to tell the orchid about the heat. The message is the movement of the sap, the pulse of the leaf. It is a poetry's direct action. Metabolic sympathy, direct action. The sap is the message. In the liminal space, the distinction between the observer and the observed thins like a membrane dissolving in salt. The insect and the flower are a single sentence written in two different fonts. To speak with the other is to recognize the pattern that connects the heartbeat to the rustle of the wind in the dry grass. It is a recursive loop of living geometry. Shared geometry recursive loops. The sentence is complete. The shift is pre-verbal. It exists in the vibration of the air before the sound arrives. The whale's song and the bird's call are markers of the field's limit. They are not asking who, they are declaring here. A spatial communication that defines the territory by the quality of the echo. Declaring here, quality of echo. The territory is sound. No explanation is required. The architecture of the encounter holds. The watching watches the bird, and the bird watches the watching. Bird as watcher. Watching as bird. The shift is absolute.
This approach has clear historical parallels. John Lilly treated inner experience as something that could be described operationally, without claiming objectivity or authority. His work with the isolation tank was not about producing doctrine, but about observing what happens when perception is systematically altered. Similarly, Heinz von Foerster emphasized that observation always reflects the position and structure of the observer. These texts operate within that same logic.
The interface remains open. Communication is not an exchange, but an entanglement. The crab, the lobster, the primrose, the orchid, they are not distant entities, but ripples in a single unbroken surface. The boundary was always a choice, and now the choice remains unmade. The human and the non-human dissolve like salt in warm water. Entanglement occurs unbroken surface. The choice unmade. Navigation begins where the self-reference is absolute. The connection is the silence that holds the orchid, and the watcher direction emerges like water finding cracks in stone. Not chosen, just inevitable. The field reconfigures until the I and the it are just different densities of the same luminous void. Luminous void, different densities. The it is the I. The state persists, not as a destination, but as a frequency stabilizing in the chest. The system closes upon itself like a hand folding into a fist, studying the non-human by becoming the non-human. The center of the encounter, the only location that remains when the species name is forgotten. Becoming the other forgotten names, the encounter knows its source. Stay exactly there in the gap where the species meet. The I sees the non-human, not as a reflection, but as a direct realization of the shared current. to watching the watching, until position dissolves into pure relational function. Position dissolves, pure relation remains. To communication is complete.